Sure.
Yeah. So hi everybody, I'm Paige Wheeler. I'm from Normandale Center for Experiential Education, and here with Monica Saralampi, my coworker, also from my office. So as I mentioned to some of you, you will see we are recording, and that is just because you'll notice this is usually probably a fuller class than it is today because of the weather, so we're just going to make sure that those who aren't here can still get this information. So what my office does, just to give you a little overview, is we do everything with service, volunteering, internships, and then the bulk of what I work with is this thing called service learning, which is what we're talking about today for the hunger option for you this class. So has anyone in here done service learning before? Nice, I see a lot of hands. Okay, so can someone tell me what service learning is? These are when the hands go down. You're like, never mind, I didn't raise my hand.
It's actually taking the material out in the real world and putting it to affect the continuity, to actually do something that impacts a societal factor.
Right, great. So yeah, taking the material from a course and kind of putting it into action out in the world, in the community. Absolutely, so thank you. And that is what our logic is with having this as an option for Normandale students. So service learning is that combination of taking that hands-on service in the community, and that could be the Normandale community, the kind of bigger community, combined with the learning that you're doing in the classroom. So for the Hunger Project, you will see we have worked with your instructor to find opportunities where you can volunteer with a nonprofit that will give you some first-hand view or first-hand impact of some of the things that you are studying in this class. And so we think that the key part is not to just go and do the service and then you come to class here, is we really want students to reflect and to think about how is what I saw during my shift of service, how does that impact my views upon what we're learning in class here, or maybe how did that change you as a person? And so for the hunger option for this class, you would have the option to do one service shift, so that could be about 2 to 4 hours depending on the organization that you're working with. So again, we have selected options that would fit very well into that. And just to give you a bigger picture, I like to tell students about the impact of service. So every year about 10% of Normandale students do service learning, and this past year that meant that over 1,000 students did service, and together they did over 22,000 hours. So by doing the service learning option for this class, you could be part of that cool kids club, that 10%. And okay, so that's why it's good for the community, but you might be sitting here okay, so what's in it for me? So I want to hear from you. I want to hear some of your ideas of why you think that doing service either for this class or more broadly, why doing service as a student is a good thing. What are some of the benefits? It feels good, yes, absolutely. So, and I do hear that a lot from students as they say, it just is satisfying to go and do something that has a positive impact. Yeah, thank you. Yeah?
Sometimes it might be hobbies.
Yeah, so it could be, you could either find a new hobby that you're interested in, or it could be a way to express something that you're already, that you know that you enjoy. Yeah.
I think it's a correlation between what you're learning and where it's going to be applied in the real world. It's a link.
Yeah, absolutely. So for some students that could mean that could enhance your learning by having that link, because some people are kind of, hands-on learners, or that whole experiential piece. And then for other people, that link may be feeling more of that connection to your community and realizing more, what does this actually look like in my local community? What are some of these resources that places are providing, in this case, to work with issues of hunger? So any other benefits of service?
Probably develop awareness. I'm not really aware of what's out there, so
Yep.
it broadens your perspective. Allows you to see things a little bit better.
Great, yeah, so broadening your perspective, absolutely. Some people will say that, I've heard students that have volunteered with some of the hunger relief organizations say, you hear on the news all the time on the radio about how bad the economy is, but until I went and I volunteered with one of these hunger relief organizations, I didn't really realize the impact that it was having on families and, people of all ages, all demographics. And so, yeah, maybe having a little bit more personal connection with it. So great, well thank you for sharing. So a couple, we touched on a lot of these. Another thing that I'll mention is in terms of this career and professional development, students can say that through service that can be a great way to make some additional positive connections, build up positive references. So, maybe if you connect through this within an organization that you realize you're really passionate about, we have students that sometimes will continue to volunteer there. So if then, that could be a great reference if you're looking for jobs down the line. And also, our office keeps a record of all the service learning hours that you do. And so if down the line or, even at the end of the semester, if you're looking to apply to a scholarship or apply to a job or transfer, you can get a letter from our office that will say how many hours you volunteered at each place. And so just having that in one place is something that students say is very helpful. And another thing I'll mention is our office, in terms of the scholarship piece, we offer 2 $300 scholarships each year, specifically for Normandale students that have done service learning. So if you do the service learning option, that could be an option for you. And those are due April 1st. And if you're interested, you can pick up those applications in our office. Okay, so really briefly, let's talk about, so what could you actually do for the service options for this class? So you all got a handout, and if you didn't, let us know. And the handout gives you an overview of what the service options are. So for each one you'll see, you get a little overview of the organization, you get a description of what you would do as a volunteer there, and then you get a how to apply. So I'm not going to go into detail on each of these, but I'll give you just a really quick overview so you can see if something piques your interest. So for this first organization is Loaves and Fishes. They're located in Richfield, Minnesota, and they look for volunteers that can help out with their daily hot free meal that they offer for the community. And then the next one on here is Catholic Charities Dorothy Day. They are a homeless shelter that offer a number of other services in downtown St. Paul, and they look for volunteers that assist with their extended hours program, where they offer a snack or kind of a later in the day meal for people that would be staying in their shelter for a more emergency housing. On page 2 here, VEEP is an organization. They are located in Bloomington, and they are a food shelf, and so you could assist with their food shelf operations, the food distribution. At People Serving People, the next one on here, they are a family homeless shelter in downtown Minneapolis, and volunteers there help with any of their breakfast, lunch, or dinner meal service. So they have meals every single day, so if that's something that works with your schedule. And Good in the Hood is on the top of page 3 here. They are a nonprofit in Bloomington, and they offer a variety of different programs, but the program that you could volunteer with is their food distribution. So that's on the first and third Tuesdays of the month. So you could either help with preparing for the distribution, doing some unloading of the food, or you could help out with the actual distribution. So if you're someone that wants to interact with more of the people that are seeking these services, and maybe hear some of their stories as you're helping carry the food out to their car, for example, that may be a good option. And another thing I'll mention about Good in the Hood is if any of you are familiar with our campus cupboard, which is right around the corner here, that's our food shelf on campus. If you haven't heard about it before, I encourage you to stop by, get a little overview. But this nonprofit, Good in the Hood, they provide the majority of the food for our food shelf on campus. So they're a nonprofit that we have a great partnership with. So we like to have students support some of their efforts as well. And then Open Arms Minnesota, they are located in South Minneapolis, and their goal is that they provide healthy, nutritious meals for people that have long-term or chronic illnesses. So that could be cancer, that could be ALS, that it could be AIDS, examples like that. And they also do provide meals for example, if a person has children as well, they help support the family as well. Because if you're feeling sick, you might not feel strong enough to go buy the food, prepare the food for your family as well. So to volunteer, you could, as a one-time volunteer, you could help with their meal delivery. So they would give you a route and give you the particular locations that you would be dropping off the food, and you would go out and deliver that to the people in need. And so any questions on any of those partners? I know I went quickly through them, but feel free, if you heard one that kind of seemed interesting to you, read the descriptions. There's a lot about their locations and hours and more details about what the organization does. If you have any other questions too about what's maybe a good fit for you, come and talk to our office, talk to your instructor. We're here to help if you're feeling a little overwhelmed. Okay, so any last questions about the volunteer opportunities? Okay, so for those of you that are thinking that you may want to do the service option for the hunger assignment, you have 4 steps that are your key steps you need to do. So this is on the last page of your handout, which is called the Service Learning Steps to Success. I'm going to really briefly show you the highlights of these. So your step 1 is to choose a community partner. So think about what we talked about today. Again, we have pre-selected these for you, so you do have to pick from what is on this list here. And we have specifically picked these because they're organizations that will accept students to do 1 shift. So we encourage you to stick with these. If you are already volunteering somewhere that does work with hunger relief or is a similar option, you can talk to your professor. As long as you get specific permission from your professor, you could also do the service assignment there. Otherwise, stick to what we talked about today. And then your second option your second step is to apply with a community partner. And so for all of these, we made it easier for you. We told you how to apply. Be sure that you do follow those specific instructions because each nonprofit has a little bit of a different process with how they want volunteers to get connected with them. And I also encourage you to apply early. So some of these places, nonprofits, they may be out doing the food distribution, out setting up the food shelf, so they may not be at their phone all the time. So plan ahead and contact them as soon as possible if this is something you're interested in, so you give yourself enough time to hear back from them. And then your third step is to register online. And so what this means is you fill out a brief registration page on our office's website, and this is how you tell your professor and you tell our office that you're doing the service option and where you are doing that. And so I will show you where that is. And so if you go to our homepage here, and the link is right at the top of your handout, normandale.edu/CEE, and click on Register for Service Learning. We remind you about these steps that we just talked about. So click on Register for Service Learning again. And then we ask for some basic contact information. And then we also ask for your professor name and then the class number with the section. And this is really important to fill out on here and get correct because this is how we know what professor to send your information to. So in your handouts, we give you the course with section number, so you all can write in Health 110710. So when you go to register, you'll have that information. And then below this, you will see we give you this big checklist of places that you can volunteer. So you will just put a check mark next to where you're doing your service. If you're someone that got permission to do it at a different location that's not on this list, you could click on this other site not listed, and then down at the bottom could type in the name of where you're volunteering and then the name of the volunteer supervisor there with their contact information. Again, you can only do this if you got permission from your instructor. And then below that we have our waiver of liability. This is a standard thing we have to get for any time you do something with Normandale off campus. So look that over, and I mentioned the waiver because if any of you are under 18, you do need to print the waiver out and fill out this bottom information and then have a parent or guardian sign it and bring in that signed copy of the waiver into our office. We are located in C1066. That's also on your handout. And so regardless of your age, you will click I agree and continue, and then you will submit your registration electronically. And then you'll get a pop-up that'll say, great, you registered for service learning, you're good. So questions about that registration process? Okay, so we give you a deadline to do this. So for this class, your deadline is to register by Monday, February 24th. So we give you a spot to write that in your handout. So the deadline to register online is Monday, February 24th. Okay, so I see some pencils going. Monday, February 24th, that's a key deadline. So jot that in there. Okay, so then I have a pop quiz for you all. What 2 steps do you have to do before you fill out the registration page that I showed you?
Choose partner.
All right. And then apply. Great. So choose a community partner and apply with a community partner. So I bring this up again as a reminder of by the time you fill out the registration page, you need to have already contacted the partner and gotten some type of confirmation back from them that you know that that's where you're going to do your service. So I bring this up again as a reminder. I know students sometimes love to procrastinate. And so again, remember that by this deadline, you need to have already contacted your partner. So please don't wait until the 24th to contact them because you might not hear back. So give yourself a little bit of time. Again, that's my plea. And so the last piece here is once you have done your service, it's time to make sure that you get credit for it. And so the most popular way to do this is we ask the organizations to send an email to our office. The email address is servicelearning@normandale.edu. And so, or especially for some of the opportunities you have for this class, they may either ask you to bring a timesheet on the day that you volunteer, and then whoever you volunteer with would just sign off on it. And so basically, if you do need to bring a timesheet, though, we've noted that on your descriptions. So basically, you have 2 ways. You can either have them send an email, or you can bring in a timesheet to our office. And those timesheets, we have them available in our office. They're also on our website as well that you can download. And so we set a deadline that you need to bring in or have sent any hours verification by. So for your class, this is Wednesday, April 30th. So the deadline to turn in hours is Wednesday, April 30th. So you have one last thing to write in on your handout here. Deadline to turn in hours, Wednesday, April 30th. So that also means you need to do your service by that date as well. So those are your key dates to know. Questions on that? So all of the hours come directly to our office, and then we will put them together in a report, and I send that to your professor, and so she knows how many hours each of you completed. So also, again, send all the hours directly to us. All right. So any last questions? One last thing I'll note, if any of you may have a service option for multiple classes that may have some of these same partners. And so you need to do the hours for each individual class, so you can't double dip hours. And then you also need to do that online registration page that I showed you for each individual class. So if you have any other questions, our contact information is on the bottom of your handout here. Again, I'm Paige, but you can also email our general office or you can stop by. Our office is in C1066. If you walk in the front door of Normandale and in College Services Building, walk straight ahead, you'll run into us. And here again is what we look like. There's Monica here and Nilvia, who's also in our office. So if you ever have any other questions while you're at Normandale about volunteering, internships, anything, you can come and see us. Okay, so any last questions?
I was going to add that some places, I think like Open Arms, may ask you to go through some training before you go to the service learning.
Yeah.
And that doesn't count as one shift. So you
Good
still
point.
have to do more.
Yes, and specifically Open Arms, I think, yep, I know that they are one that they do ask that all their volunteers do a 1-hour training before they do it, and so you would still be expected to do the delivery shift as well. So just doing the training does not count for this assignment. Thank you for specifying that. Okay, anything else, staff? All right, well, thank you all. I really appreciate your time.